Woodstock, Georgia is definitely one of Metro Atlanta's best suburbs, but should you move there? Let's talk about the good and the bad of Woodstock, Georgia. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Victor. I'm a local real estate agent here in Georgia, and I put out videos every week about what it's like to live in Atlanta and the surrounding cities. In this video, we're talking about Woodstock, Georgia. No question that any part of Metro Atlanta has its goods and its bads. And if you're thinking about moving to one of those suburbs, you want to know what the good sides are and you want to know what the downsides are. So Woodstock is no different. Woodstock has its good sides and its bad sides as well. One of the things that you should know about the city of Woodstock is that it's located kind of on the outskirts of Metro Atlanta. Metro Atlanta can kind of be described as the city of Atlanta itself, and then all of the cities that are around Atlanta. And those cities, that metro area has kind of developed like a circle around the city of Atlanta, whereas Atlanta is the busiest part and the most populated part of Metro Atlanta. The outskirts of Metro Atlanta are like the areas that are growing the most. This is where people who are moving to Metro Atlanta are kind of moving to the outskirts of Metro Atlanta, and that's because home values are a little better there. It's not as populated, and Woodstock is that kind of city. It's on the outskirts of Metro Atlanta. So Woodstock only has a population of about 35,000 people. In comparison, neighboring Marietta has a population of about 60,000 people. So a very big difference between those two cities, which are right next to each other. As you can imagine, one of the things that comes with a city that is not as populated as Marietta or Atlanta is that Woodstock has a kind of small town feel to it. You know, like there's a lot of good community there in Woodstock. Many people know each other because it's a small town. It's not a very big city. So it's very common to maybe run into a neighbor at the grocery store or at the park or in downtown Woodstock. And this is because, again, Woodstock has that small town feel to it. So if you're thinking about moving to Woodstock, you know, that's something that you want to ask yourself, like, are you cool with running into your neighbors, you know, at the grocery store? Or are you trying to stay away from your neighbors at the grocery store? Because that's the kind of thing you're going to find in Woodstock, Georgia. In addition to that, because Woodstock is kind of on the outside of Metro Atlanta, it's not very close to the city of Atlanta. Like if there are things that you need to access in the city of Atlanta regularly, you should know that the commute from Woodstock to Atlanta is about 45 minutes. You know, if the rush hour traffic is really bad that day, you should expect maybe even an hour commute down Interstate 75 to the city of Atlanta. But if you're trying to stay far away from the city of Atlanta, like many people in Metro Atlanta do, then Woodstock might be a good fit. Again, Woodstock is quite a ways from the city of Atlanta, so it's not a similar city to Atlanta. It's not a big town, you know, it doesn't have the high-rise buildings, it doesn't have a whole bunch of things to do all the time. Woodstock is certainly a quiet suburban town. And then something else that you get with that kind of small suburban feel is lots of parks, lots of green space, and Woodstock certainly has those things. Woodstock has lots of outdoor activities. It's great for families, young kids, and so you're going to be able to find plenty of outdoor activities in the city of Woodstock. Okay, now let's talk about downtown Woodstock. Downtown Woodstock is kind of a different feel from the rest of the city. Downtown is really just one road, one main intersection there in the city of Woodstock where there's a lot going on. There's an amphitheater there, lots of shopping, lots of restaurants, and most of it is walkable. So it's really easy to access all of the different stores and all the different shops there in downtown Woodstock. And it's one of the highlights of living in the city of Woodstock. But you should know that the rest of Woodstock is not like the downtown part. The rest of the city is more like a bunch of neighborhoods, you know, and so it's not a bunch of commercial areas. It's not a lot of shopping all around the city. The majority of that is centralized there in downtown. So it's very common to see people from all over, not just the city of Woodstock, but a lot of other cities around there coming to downtown Woodstock to hang out and to go to the restaurants and go to the shopping. And because the downtown part is only on like one or two roads, that also means that there's a lot of traffic there in downtown Woodstock. In fact, they are working on building a parking deck there in downtown, but it is very slow going. I believe they cleared that land like 6 months ago and have not even started building the parking deck. So traffic remains pretty terrible there in downtown Woodstock, but the highlights are that there's lots of things to do right there in that small area. Some of my favorite restaurants there in downtown Woodstock are Century House, Salt Factory Pub, and the Pie Bar. And then there's also an amphitheater there with a small park and a fountain, lots of kids playing there. It's a great place, a very family-friendly kind of area. Really, downtown Woodstock is very much a family-friendly kind of environment. Okay, next, let's talk about the houses in Woodstock, Georgia. Some things that you should know about here are that some of the houses in Woodstock are kind of older. There's a lot of 70s and 80s homes in the city of Woodstock, and then there's also some new construction as well. So you really need to pay attention to the age of the homes if you're thinking about buying a home in Woodstock. Because the city is so far from Atlanta, you're going to find great home values in Woodstock, Georgia. The average sold price for the last 2 months has been about $410,000 for a home in Woodstock, which is great compared to, again, neighboring Marietta, where the average home value is $450,000, or Alpharetta, Georgia, where the average home value is like $700,000. So $410,000 for a home in Woodstock is a great deal, especially in an area like Woodstock, where you can find great community and schools, plenty of shopping. $410,000 for a 3-bed, 2-bath home is a great deal. But what comes along with that is the older homes. And these older homes that you can find in the city of Woodstock sometimes have certain problems, like roofs that are maybe 20 or 30 years old, or HVAC systems that are 20 years old. You really have to make sure that you're doing a home inspection on any home that's built in the 70s and 80s, or any home at all for that matter. But it's just something to be aware of. In Woodstock, Georgia, you're going to find a lot older homes, older neighborhoods that maybe are not as well kept as other cities. So there's certainly a trade-off there. You're going to find excellent home values, but not all of the homes are great in Woodstock. Next up, let's talk about the good and the bad of the public school system in Woodstock, Georgia. The public school system in Woodstock is not terrible, but it's not excellent. The average school rating in Woodstock is about a 7 out of 10. In fact, Woodstock Elementary School, which is on Rope Mill Road, is a 7 out of 10. Woodstock Middle School, which is on Town Lake Hills South Drive, is a 6 out of 10. And Woodstock High School, which is also on Town Lake Hills, is a 7 out of 10. So you're certainly not going to find the best schools in Metro Atlanta in Woodstock, but you're not going to find the worst schools. Now, something that I often say on this channel is that you can have a student who goes to a public school that is rated a 7 out of 10 and have an excellent teacher and have an excellent experience. Likewise, you can have a student that goes to a 10 out of 10 school and has a poor teacher and has a terrible experience. So it's all relative, I think. Anything lower than a 7 out of 10 is probably something you should reconsider. But in my opinion, a 7 out of 10 is not that bad, especially because the rating system from greatschools.org is very vague. There really are a lot of factors that go into play when determining the quality of a school, and greatschools.org really is just giving one number to this school, but there are so many more factors. So it's certainly a personal preference. If you're looking for only 9s or 10s for a public school system, then Woodstock is not really a good fit. But if you're okay with a school that is a 7 out of 10, and maybe you're going to be very involved with that school or involved with your child's education, then in my opinion, a 7 out of 10 school is certainly doable, and Woodstock is a great choice because of that. Next up, let's talk about the good and the bad of the weather in Georgia and some of the nature factors that we have in Woodstock, Georgia. Like many of the other suburbs around Metro Atlanta, The humidity that you're going to find in Woodstock in the summertime is absolutely terrible. Compared to some of the other states in the US, Metro Atlanta has a lot of humidity, and it's something that a lot of people comment on when they come here to Metro Atlanta from other parts of the US. I would say the summers in Woodstock are not terrible, that maybe the high in the summertime is going to average around 95 to 100 degrees, and then the low in the wintertime in Woodstock is going to be about 15 to 20 degrees at its coldest, depending on what year it is. It fluctuates a lot. This year, we had a low temperature of 6 degrees during December, but that's not very common. Really, what's much more common is around 15, 20 degrees in the wintertime. And then another thing to think about when it comes to the weather and nature is the amount of pine trees that you're going to find in the city of Woodstock. We have a lot of trees, we have a lot of pine trees, and a lot of nature in Woodstock, Georgia. But what comes with those pine trees is that they have a very short lifespan and they grow so tall. And pine trees near homes is not a really good mix. It's not uncommon to hear of a pine tree falling over and falling on someone's home, which I'm sure you can imagine causes a lot of problems. So we have a lot of those pine trees in Woodstock, Georgia. Any pine tree that is within 100 feet of a home needs to be taken down so that you can protect the home from falling pine trees. What also comes with the pine trees that we have here in Georgia is the amount of pollen that we have. We have tons of allergens from all of the trees and all of the nature that we have here in Metro Atlanta, and Woodstock is no different. No question that Woodstock is one of the best suburbs in all of Metro Atlanta. If you want a full list of the best suburbs, click on this video. I'll see you there.